bunch of neighborhood clubs or South. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities for kids to play soccer. I don't think it's the, if I'm in charge of the park district, I don't think it's the park district or government's responsibility to provide competition to something that's already being served. I would assume that the park district would want to provide services to, I don't know, my son wanted to do more with the tennis organization, and there weren't any options. I don't, you can talk to the crowd, everybody can come up with something else. I'm very unclear as to why there was this big push to have a competitive soccer league when it was a need that was already being fulfilled, and being fulfilled very well. I've been a coach for 14 years. I've only been a coach, haven't served on the board. I've coached travel, I've coached rec, and it just seems, all the other drama aside with everything, the fields, locks, and all that other stuff, I don't see the end goal of having a competitive soccer league. So I'm going to try to throw some logic into all this stuff here. And I was talking to a couple people from PSA. Like I said, I haven't been in the board of PSA. I've only been a coach, so I don't know all the numbers. But I would be shocked if you did a true analysis that included your cost of staff time. You have to include all of it. You can't include their base wage. You have to include their burden, their pension costs, all that. Cost of staff time, cost of lighting, cost of field, every cost associated with you guys doing your own soccer program. And tell me that's the best use, that's going to be cheaper than what PSA is doing on their own. The most frustrating part about this as a taxpayer is we have a service that's being fulfilled to the public locally for free. And now taxpayer dollars are going to pay for something that's already being fulfilled. That seems counterintuitive to me. Now if there's some analysis that I could look at, a book of all the costs and here's all the money we're saving, I mean that's a different story, but I haven't seen it, I haven't heard of it. So all the other stuff aside, I'm glad, Gene, that you were able to work out the field space time for everybody. I think it was this morning I actually got my soccer schedule out to everybody. I'm glad we're going to have that, but I think there's plenty of competition out there. We've had a good organization here locally. There is competition. I would beg of the board, I'm doing it as nicely as I can, I would beg of the board to reverse their decision going forward so that we can have, instead of having a bunch of league programs where you have multiple age groups playing together or combined boys and girls playing together, I think it would be best for the kids, and maybe that's why we're all here, if we had a situation where we had a stronger, more cohesive single group that is zero cost to the taxpayers. That's the amazing part about this to me, is that, you know, PSA doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. And it's something that people volunteer for and feel good about, and they're not getting paid for it. I mean, there's a lot of volunteer hours that go into that. So I'm sure somebody else might speak onto the costs associated with it, but I would beg of you to rethink it through for next season so that we can just have a better program for the kids. It doesn't matter who does it. My guess is the way it's been doing is probably the most efficient way to do it. Thank you for taking it, sir.
Good evening. It's been a while since I've seen some of you. My name is Brian Trular. I'm a Plainfield resident since 1998. I'd like to expand on what Mr. Batnick talked about. I can tell you that since 2001 to 2013, PSA has invested in the park district over $750,000. Now that doesn't include what PAC does, PJC, or the wrestling club does. So that's $750,000 that doesn't come from our taxpayer money. So you need to think about that. Doing so, PSA is also required to have 90% of its players be residents. You know, PSA, not only PSA, PJC, PAC, we supported all the referendums, which is why we have a lot of open space that we have. This board talks about being fiscally responsible, but recently you've invested $100,000 to start up your youth soccer program. You need to reconsider that. That's taxpayers' money that you don't need to be spending in those areas. There's already a program in place that doesn't cost taxpayers any money. Youth sports groups supported past referendums, open space for athletic complexes such as Ridge Road. Mr. Stein, last week you referred to us as a powerhouse. Maybe you should think about utilizing that to your advantage. How can you get them to work harder for the park district? what can we do to maybe build that Ridge Road complex that's been vacant for the last 15 years. It's supposed to be set up for adult softball fields, youth softball and baseball fields. Youth sports groups support money in the park district for improvement projects that otherwise would not, nor have ever had the funds to do so, such as improvements in paving parking lots, adding lighted football fields, lighted soccer fields, all the way down to small things such as speed bumps, so that cars aren't going too fast when kids are crossing back and forth the access road. AEDs on each park district facility, so God forbid somebody has a heart attack, that there's something there that they can be aided with aside from CPR. Park district has also sought out to recruit outside soccer organizations to assume prime locations for the park district fields and field times to an organization that has no ties or investments within the park district. Mr. Tato, I'd like to ask you if that is true, that you sought out an all Hispanic league from Crest Hill.
I don't get involved into the day-to-day operations, sir.
So you're saying you have no ties to that?
I don't have any ties.
So we shouldn't see a Crest Hill league on Sundays at Van Horn Woods all day?
Like I said again, I don't get involved in the day-to-day operations.
Does the staff not take your direction?
No,
They don't?
I don't get involved
Okay.
in the staff
That's gonna
operation.
Is it also true that you pushed for this league because of the fact that your son was unable to make the high school team at the high school level? And that you wanted a place for him to play, so that's why you pushed for Park District League?
I did mention that to Mr. Harris, when
Okay.
we were talking about on the last meeting.
No, this is, I learned this from last fall.
No, I just talked.
No, I learned this from last fall. My
No,
kids are former students from Plainfield South, so I'm aware of a lot of things that go on, sir. Okay.
My son is not interested in.
What I'm asking you, sir, is it seems like you're doing everything you can to undermine the positive influence of what the sports athletics groups have had here for years, that have had good communication, good ties with the Park District. It's been a great partnership up until the last year. And it seems like you're doing everything you can to undermine that partnership. And you need to rethink that. And probably the best thing to do would be for you to just step down and let somebody go ahead and take the direction of the Park District to a positive direction, rather than going to a negative direction. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Anyone else would like to address? Yes, Mr. Harris? Oh, sorry.
Hi, my name is Tom DeVoe. I live on
Do we
Billy.
really want to keep it to 3 minutes, please?
Oh, yeah.
Thank
But
you.
less than that.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was looking for.
I am the girls travel coordinator for Chicago Fire Juniors and PSA. I've been a resident now for since 1990. But I wanted to publicly thank Jean and Georgie for all their help on our field usage. I know Jean mentioned it, but we got through a lot of stuff last week, and we're all taken care of. And I just wanted to say
Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Rob Ayers, I live in my house. I did not share our conversation that we had, just
Okay.
so that we're clear.
Yeah, that's good.
Just real quick, and I will keep it under a minute. I just wanted to recognize Commissioners Newton, Ludeman, and Solosky for not taking part in what was, in my opinion, a much unneeded meeting, and it's the appreciation that I have, and I can speak for many within our organization who also acknowledge that too, for your professionalism and not stooping to the level of a couple others that had that meeting. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hi guys, I'm Vicki Polito. I'll be real fast. One, I was thinking in terms of your goals of transparency. It occurred to me again in looking at the packet that it would be a good idea, I think it was intentionally quite some time ago done, those PDFs need to be searchable, that they are a scanned document. Clearly seems to need to be a barrier. There'd be too much material to wade through. If it were searchable, you could look for what you're looking for in a packet. That would be helpful. Also, I do understand, and I'm not familiar with these people, but I do understand the appreciation of all the soccer people in the crowd towards Jean and towards Georgie, whose name I can't pronounce. But the only thing I'm curious about with this, and I understand that the administration is sort of in flux, is I know that Georgie is the horticulturalist. And I appreciate her pitching in, but I'm wondering, why is the horticulturalist sorting out our field agreement stuff? I would rather see a staff member, and I'm also wondering where the magic Mr. Hernandez is in this mix, that we're paying him. And I forgot my third thing, but it couldn't have been too important, I wouldn't have forgot it, and I'll catch you next month. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. Anyone else? All right, let's move into the commission comments. Commissioner Zaleski?
No, I have no comment. I have a few, actually. One is about the sports groups. I understand there have been numerous changes to the field use agreements, including the cost sharing that the sports groups are expected to do. And that is a board decision, and that has not come before the board. So I'm just curious as to why that happened that way, and I would like to see these agreements reverted back to the previous agreements that were officially approved and stop the shenanigans. Secondly, field scheduling. That was a disaster this year. That has never happened in my history on this board, and I want to know why scheduling was taken away from the rec department and put onto the maintenance department. It belongs with the people that have the experience and expertise, no offense to Georgie, and I appreciate that she cleared this up, but this shouldn't have happened in the first place. Thirdly, the banners for PAC. That is a board decision again. Board sets these policies. We, staff, should not be saying, we're gonna buy banners or sell banners, take banners away from PAC. I asked PAC what they used to do with that money that they're now being told they're not allowed to use. And they used that money to keep their registration fees flat and also to help pay for children whose families were experiencing hardships so they could participate in the program. They made about $1,500 to $2,000 a year on these banners, and I don't understand whose decision it was. I know what I'm being told, but that should have come before the board. They should be allowed to start selling their banners like they've always been allowed to do. No board decision was made to take this away from them, therefore it's not valid. So those are my 3 sports group issues. The other issue I have is our planning department. I'm hearing time and time again from staff how hard it is for them to pick up the slack for not having a planning department. We're missing grant opportunities. We're having difficulties keeping up with the workload that the planning department should be doing. The planning department should have never been eliminated in the first place. I would like to see the planning department reinstated. Also, I would like to see our staff participate in harassment and workplace violence training because of some of the things I've heard happen here in the last 8 months. Things that were said to staff that were inappropriate by certain members of the staff that, just shouldn't have happened in the first place. That is something that should be done annually anyhow, and we can more than likely get it through our insurance carrier. Most insurance carriers offer that. So those are my things I wanted to bring up that I'm unhappy about and that need to be dealt with immediately. On a happier note, for everyone here, thank you for coming. I appreciate everybody's comments. Our announcement for vacancy of executive director is in draft form right now. We're going to look at this as a board in executive session, I believe, to just go over it, make sure there's no errors. I did find a couple of little typo things, but this is moving forward. Officially, the announcement should come out the end of this week or early part of next week. The deadline for the applications will be May 19th. Candidates will be presented to the board in the early part of June. We're going to be conducting interviews in mid-June, and we're hoping to have our new executive director on staff by early to mid-July. So that's the process. As soon as these are formalized and not in draft form, we'll be able to share them with everybody. It's through the Illinois Association of Park Districts. One person, Howard, you had wanted to have a committee. Right now, it's on the board level. We can discuss that further, but it's the board's responsibility to hire this individual. It's one of our main duties. So, we did kind of toss that around on the committee level of having people on the selection process, but I was under the impression that that has to be the board. So I'll double check on that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner?
Well, all I have is basically, since the recreation availability was passed, in regards to this referendum, basically look into the possibilities of building a facility out here. My suggestion is possibly look at a committee, getting members from outside the public, children and so forth, and plus staff members and commissioners involved into a talk discussion in regards to what they want to see into building up a rec center, and possibly looking at general input in regards to a good location, possibly putting into building a facility for simply door winter type of activities. So that's my recommendation in regards to what's been put out to the public in regards to their response. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
President Hurtado, I just decided there's just something short. I just want to make a comment to all the employees that are here, and there's some here tonight. I've told you guys this before, but you guys have dealt with such aplomb and graciousness through all that has gone on and everything that's going forward, and there couldn't be a better staff. All of you guys really deserve a great applause. If anybody wants to give applause for the staff.
Any comments, motion meeting?
No.
District legislator.
Oh, okay, yeah. Here is a copy of the most recent legislative update from IAPD regarding the status of legislation should be recent earlier, sorry. Also, I wanted to mention that per 4.7, section 4.7 of the board manual, no commissioner may state support for or opposition against any legislation affecting the Park District unless and until formal action has been taken by the entire board in open session on that legislation. It's misleading to inform legislators, for instance, a majority of board members agree or disagree with a particular piece of legislation, because without action in open session on that legislation, the board as a whole has no position one way or the other. It would be more accurate and more appropriate in such cases to inform legislators of an individual board member's opinion regarding legislation, but their opinions are simply their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the entire board. On Sunday, March 23rd, I spoke directly to Doug Booth on the phone after I was informed that he was planning to attend a hearing in Springfield and testify on behalf of the Park District against Representative Cross's bill. When I asked him who authorized him to attend and testify on our behalf, he replied that no one had authorized him, but he thought it would be a good idea for someone to be there and to testify. The next day, I took the opportunity to contact each member of the House, City, and Villages Committee to inform them that our board had not taken any public stance on House Bill 5593, and if anyone attempted to testify representing that they were speaking on behalf of the board or the board majority, the representative should be aware that no one had been authorized to do so. The following day, that committee held a hearing on the bill, and it passed out of committee with a vote of 15 to 1. And I would formally like to ask that the board at next month's meeting take a formal position on Cross's bill, House Bill 5593.
All right, anything else? No? All right, let's go to the action items. Action item 8, seeking a motion to approve resolution 2014-08, directing the relocation and reschedule dates for the board meetings. Do I have a motion?
I will give that motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Discussions? Here none, roll call please.
Ludeman. Yes. Newton.
Yes.
Solowski.
Yes.
Steinings. Hurtado.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Action item E, seeking a motion to approve resolution 2014-09. Resolution changing the formal name of the Plainfield Township Park District into the Plainfield Park District. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do I have a second? No, all right. No second.
Motion fails.
All right, item C, seeking seeking a motion to approve resolution 2014-10, a resolution placing an item on the agenda for this, on the last meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussions?
There's one thing I'd like to add to this, because currently the way it's written, we either have to ask during new business or have 2 or more commissioners through written request, and I'd like it to be added in there that it's also how it used to be, where you could just talk to the executive director and say, I'd like this put on the agenda. You know, in recent months, there's been some issues where things were not getting on the agenda, and that was the reason for this being drafted. Requests were being denied. Prior to the change of things that happened before, that was never an issue. So I would like that option still to be there as well.
But then you run the risk of that same situation occurring.
Then you could do the written request. So I don't want it to be only a written request, but to have that option, and then if need be, a written request.
And I understand what you're saying, and I think the reason for the drafting of language the way it was to avoid any, oh, you didn't ask them. things.
Right, no,
You
I
know,
understand.
you know, and again, the written request is as simple thing as an email to the executive director, I would like this on the agenda. If that's the pleasure of the board, we should change it. But that, I just want to tell you the reason.
No,
why
I know
saying it.
exactly. I was one of the people that got things denied. So I was just thinking though, I'm thinking going forward that hopefully these problems won't continue so that that can still be an option. And if it is still a problem going forward, then you have the written
Right.
request opportunity.
Well, certainly, I mean, our agenda is controlled pursuant to our manual by the president and executive director.
Right.
So if there's a question that you, or an issue you want addressed on the agenda, you can approach either one of those 2 individuals,
Right.
currently not,
Right,
orally. And again, it doesn't have to be,
and that's what I'm saying. I'd like that to continue to also be an option.
well, I think it's always an option. I mean,
Okay.
so I don't think this limits the way you do it,
Okay,
but it just states that if it's done this way, then it has to be on.
right. Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure that that's not the only way.
Sure, no,
Okay.
Any other discussions? Here none, roll call please.
Ludeman.
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Solosky.
Yes.
Stein.
Yeah.
Hurtado.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item B, seeking a motion to award a seasonal brochure printing bid. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussions?
I just have a question. It said that American Litho did not bid according to spec. Does, can anyone tell me what exactly?
Great.
That is correct. They did not meet the specifications of the draft, and I threw out their bid according to what others, they filled out the paperwork properly.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussions? Here none, roll call please.
Ludeman.
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Solosky.
Yes.
Stein.
Yeah.
Hurtado.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item E, seeking a motion to award the bids for the 2014-2015 park mall. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Gene, have we used this company before? I didn't read that in the memo.
No, we haven't. We've checked their references and so forth, but we have not.
Have we used any of the other bidders?
Oh, we have used TLC. TLC has had the contract for the past 2 years. They bid under budget. Why they came in so much higher this year is, you can see it on your sheet, I'm not sure. The low bid was, to me, obviously unqualified. He does a pizza place in somebody's house or something. The second lowest, he has the equipment, he seems to have the staff and so on, and he is within budget, so that's why we wouldn't have the second lowest bidder. We've done studies on this in the past, even contracting for big parks, which is really, once you get into a park over an acre, it's cost big bucks to get somebody to do that, but for the smaller parks, it's really, my staff, or Joe Masters' staff in the maintenance shop, there's no way that we can do that tremendous amount of parts for this.
Any other discussions? Hearing none, roll call please.
Ludeman,
Yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Solosky,
Yes.
Steinings, Hurtado,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item F, seeking a motion to approve resolution 2014-11, a resolution on the third members for the office. Do I have a motion?
Wait, no, discussion on this, or?
First a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
Second,
I'll make the second.
now discussions.
Well, like I said, I'd like to say this for executive meeting, discuss the matters in regards to, the years and so forth, if it's possible. Because this has been brought across in regards to, the years. Nobody discussed anything about the years, reducing the years and the terms.
The resolution as drafted is not consistent with the question of the referendum, correct? If that's what you're saying?
Right.
Right, correct.
So my question is, regards to, the 6-year terms, I'd like to see it reduced down to 4 years, to 2 terms max.
I didn't draft this resolution.
Okay.
I don't think it has I don't think we have the ability to pass it. Any resolution that is term limits at all.
Okay.
So that was my recommendation.
Okay.
But I don't think we can go into the executive session to discuss.
No.
Because I was going on this came about in regards to put together in this fashion. Okay.
Aye. Okay. Any other discussion?
I think that if we're going to break the law and with this resolution, we ought to add recall election.
Any other discussions?
Yes, this resolution, if passed, will violate the law of the state of Illinois Constitution. So I don't know why it's even in here. Our legal counsel did not want it in here. Who put it in here, I don't know. It's wrong, it's illegal, and that's all I have to say.
Any other discussion?
In regards to changing these terms of sort of what's the legality of approaching this, to make it happen, if it decided.
Sure. And again, I think that was kind of the thought, just like there's legislation going through now to address the issue, to address the park board issue. That's how you would address it. You'd have to change legislation.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, my understanding on this is, the park district has the power to pass all the necessary ordinance, rules, and regulations for the proper management and conduct the business of the board.
Consistent with the state constitution.
But it does not address that. I double check with a couple other attorneys from the South PS that is responsible to do it. There's other 5 municipalities that currently have ordinance. One is that we in Naperville, Dallas Grove, Brookfield, Riverside, and Winnetka.
Well, let's pay for more legal fees and get an opinion saying that.
I don't know who the attorneys are that you spoke to, Peter, because I've also spoke to attorneys on this besides Matt, sorry Matt. But I actually got my own additional opinions, and this would be a violation of the state constitution. We have to follow the law of the state constitution. And if we were to pass this, we would be opened up for a lawsuit, correct, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, I checked with again, my initial assessment of it was that we can't do it.
Right.
I checked with the IAPD, their attorneys, they said the same thing. What I had suggested was that if the board wants to look at that issue, we can look at that issue, but as I stated to Commissioner Steinings, it's something that you have to do through legislation. It's not something that we have the authority to do because it violates the Park District Code. The Park District Code is our enabling statute. That's what gives us our power to do anything. And if it doesn't say we can do it, we can't do it. The municipalities that President Hurtado mentioned are home rule municipalities, and they have different powers in them.
And they're not a district.
And they're not park districts, and they don't have the enabling statute. So it's not the same situation. But again, if the board would like us to take a look at the possibility of looking at changing legislation, something like that, we can certainly do that. But a resolution based on this is, I think, a bad idea.
May I ask you, in regards to what's going on with the commissioners adding on?
Okay.
Started out with 4. Any reason why it dropped down to 2?
I think a more palpable bill, I think is the only reason, really. I mean, right, what do you think?
More, more
Well,
input is better.
Right, well, I think, and again, I think next month we're gonna talk about it and the board's position on it. But, you know, maybe the thought was that if you had 4 political appointees, would that do what you wanted it to do? So I don't know if that was an issue. You know, because if you think about